Data leak is the last thing you want. And our platform sits on the customer's cloud subscription directly. So there's a channel from the vehicle directly to the customer's cloud subscription. And government initiatives are massively helping on that front as well. Bosch is probably the best partner to have in when we are enabling mobility related use cases.
Hello and welcome to another episode of Startup Story Spotlight. You know how many industries over the past decade or so have gone on to become a digital first industry? Well, the industry that is riding the wave for this decade is automotive industry. It has to be automotive industry, and we'll talk about that in a while why. But a very mechanical traditional sort of automotive industry is in a interesting space where it is trying to transform itself into a data driven mobile first digital first industry, be it through connected mobility, connected vehicles, telematics, and so on. And so, a key player in this connected mobility space today is Zeliot. And so, today I am in conversation with one of the co founders of Zeliot, a deep tech company founded in 2018 that provides IoT based platform solutions to automotive OEMs and enterprises like Ashok Leyland, Indian Oil Corporation, Royal Enfield, and so many more. Already powered 1 lakh plus vehicles on the road. And Bosch has taken 14% stake in Zeliot last year. And so we will talk about that collaboration. Where does that collaboration stand now? But what we'll also talk about is the connected mobility in India, how well it has been received. We will talk about the security threats that come with data and how Zeliot plans to tackle it. But we will also talk about the revenue opportunities, the bigger scope of connected mobility in India, the business opportunities. So do check the episode out. Thank you so much for joining this conversation. We already chatted about how you're doing on a Monday. It's such a busy day for you. But let's talk about the industry that you're in. So before we talk about anything else, let's talk about the automotive industry. What is the current landscape of the automotive industry in India? Where does connected mobility come in, which is where you guys are functioning right now? So go on to paint a picture for us so that it's easier to understand.
Sure. Thanks, Lata. Yeah, it's been a busy day, but good to be having this conversation. To get kick started, essentially, we are in the space of connected vehicles. We offer technology to enable connected vehicles to our partners, to manufacturers, and the various players in the ecosystem that we'll touch upon. But well, currently the industry is in a very interesting space from an Indian context because we see a lot of companies, a lot of manufacturers who are actually opening up to the idea of being a digital company as well, right? So if you look at how automotive has been, it has essentially been a mechanical first kind of an industry. I mean, and it's a really old industry. It has its ways of and it's the processes are pretty much aligned, but today we are in an interesting time where we see a lot of these companies have digital first initiatives. So the vehicle is not just something that you kind of drive, it's something that you experience digitally as well, through your mobile phone, through your share your location. You can see what the vehicle is doing, you can see its health, you can share your location with your family and your friends. You could get notified if something is going to break down, and it also helps them kind of provide a better kind of an image from a branding perspective. Because then once you have more digital touch points throughout your vehicle, that's always good to keep the customer engaged and so on. So it's at that space where currently we see this transition happening from being a traditional mechanical kind of an industry to having a big digital presence. And thanks to electric vehicles for that, because electric vehicles are expected to be digital and connected. So that's how it's kind of moving to become more of a consumer kind of a product first. So yeah, that's where the industry is at. A lot of big players getting into this space. All the major OEM brands are coming out with digital products that keeps their customers engaged and also makes it a better ownership experience for the customer at the end of the day.
Hmm. Right. And you partner with these OEMs to, enable these connected vehicles further. That's where you come at, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So, just before we move forward, quickly want to touch upon, because, and we're going to talk about connected vehicles a lot, and a lot of times connected and automotive vehicles are, these terms are interchanged with electric vehicles. What is like the major difference between both of them, and
Yeah.
what is the bigger scope of connected vehicles that we're talking about? What are some advantages that we're about to see in the ecosystem?
Sure. So, okay, well, why the terms are interchanged, first of all, is because I think electric vehicles stand to gain a lot from connectivity, right? That is why it kind of goes hand in hand. But connectivity in general and connected vehicles in general is a concept that applies to all kinds of vehicles. So, when we talk about all kinds of vehicles, we have two wheelers, both petrol two wheelers and electric two wheelers. We have cars, same battery powered and petrol diesel vehicles, and we have trucks, buses, which are also getting electrified, but there it is more of a diesel kind of a system that is in place. So connected technology kind of applies to all of these vehicles in general, right? So when we say what are the benefits that this brings to the table, is basically, let us say there's a manufacturing company which is manufacturing a vehicle, right? Now today, if there was no connected vehicle, connected technology, they would kind of just be shipping out the vehicle to the customer through the dealer and all of their supply chain, right? After that, they are completely in the blind as to how the vehicle is actually performing on the field, right? So the problem is bigger when you talk about commercial vehicles, because these vehicles have to run pretty much every day for 12, 13, 14 hours a day, and they're doing long haul cross country kind of trips. So it is very essential to kind of actually understand how the vehicle is going to perform on the field. How is it likely to break down in the near future? What kind of fuel is it consuming? Is it economical? Because the customer, for them, if the vehicle runs, there's a cost associated with the running of the vehicle, right? So you would want the most efficient vehicle to be out there on the field at any given point in time. And how do you manage this, and how do you kind of monitor this? That is through the connected vehicle technology, right? So we would have a hardware, essentially, we call it a telematics hardware, which would be fitted onto these vehicles. And these telematics hardwares are constantly reading the data from the vehicle, right? So there is a standardization on the vehicle. It's called CAN, OBD, J1939, multiple standards there. But essentially, it's a framework that enables us to read the data from the vehicle. So when I say reading the data, we are able to read the fuel level of the vehicle. We are able to read the odometer. We are able to see the kind of there is something called as if there's any kind of an error that happens. Those are the typical things that you see on the cluster of a vehicle. If you observe, there is your engine lamp that goes on, right? If there's kind of an issue. So imagine being able to do this remotely, and it gives the customer a kind of sense that okay, the vehicle is good to go ahead, and it also gives the OEM a kind of sense that if there's any vehicle that is going to break down, they could take preventive action in time, right? They could reach out to the customer owner and tell him that you need to take this vehicle in for servicing, or we could send someone for help, and we could do it over the air and so on. Saying is connected vehicle technology applies to a broad spectrum of vehicles. Why is it more important in an electric vehicle space, and why does this kind of go hand in hand typically with the electric vehicle? I think the major reason for that is range anxiety, right? And what range anxiety is when you have a typical vehicle, a non-electric vehicle today, you're always confident of kind of having a petrol pump at the nearest, within 5-10 minutes maximum. So even if you were to run out of fuel, you could get there and have it refueled quickly. And the turnaround time for refueling is really low, right? But in an electric vehicle, you always need to know, as a fleet operator or a last mile supply chain provider, you always have to be on the top of things with respect to which vehicle can do this job or do this trip the best, because you don't have the option of just pulling over and refueling it, right?
Right.
So you kind of need to be able to plan things much better, much ahead in advance, because if your vehicle doesn't do the trip, it's a minimum 3-4 hour downtime for that vehicle, right? And then your SLAs and your turnaround times with whatever your delivery goes for a toss. So I think connected vehicles plays a huge role in this sector, and essentially enabling and giving visibility to the entire ecosystem players, be it the manufacturer, be it the fleet operator, be it the end customer or the driver, in kind of telling them, what kind of range am I getting on this vehicle? Is it at top? Is it at its optimal best or no, and so on. So yeah, connected technology more horizontal across all vehicles, but definitely stronger and more important use cases in electric vehicles.
Understood. For logistics as well, of course.
Yeah.
Awesome. So, coming back to Zeliot, what does Zeliot do, and how do you empower the connected vehicles out there in the ecosystem further by providing IoT-based platform solutions? Tell us about that, and how do you partner with who are the partners that you work with to enable that in the ecosystem?
All right. So we typically work with manufacturers of the vehicle themselves, and also we have system integrators typically who would build specific solutions for each of the sectors in the industry. So when I say sectors, for example, you can look at mining as one sector, and there's a niche solution that is required in mining. So we typically partner with the company who's delivering this solution. We partner with, let us say, you talk about hyper local logistics, right? So there is specific other KPIs that you need to track when it comes to a solution like that. So we have a range of bunch of partners or system integrators in this space to whom we offer our platform overall, and our technology. So our platform has two components to it. One is the actual component that would sit in the vehicle. This is like a small piece of edge software that would get integrated onto the vehicle with the telematics device, and is responsible for collecting the data in real time. You can configure it over the air. The system integrator or the OEM can kind of define what are the parameters they want to read from the vehicle, and it also takes care of the complete security of the data, right from transmitting the data in secure encrypted channels to the cloud. It also takes care of what the parameters that you want to read, at what sample do you want the data to be delivered on the cloud, and all of that. And also it takes care of network, right? So if there is no network, you have to store the data on the edge and then transmit it once there's mobile network available again. So we start with that edge product, and then we have a product called as Condense on the cloud. So the edge product is called Condense Edge, and on the cloud we have a product called as Condense, where the Condense sits on the customer subscription, cloud subscription, right? We don't offer it as a SaaS offering. We offer it on our customers cloud, basically localizing the data for them, right? Because data security is a big question, big concern in this particular segment. So we ensure that our platform works with the customer's cloud. They are getting the data from the vehicles firsthand, right? The data doesn't go through us or it doesn't go through any third party. They have direct access to the data from the vehicles. And Condense essentially enables them to write rules on the data in real time. The system integrators or the manufacturers can kind of define rules, define alerts on the real time data, and it helps them scale the scale the vehicles easily. So you have more and more connected vehicles coming onto the field. Our technology ensures that it is always available, and the platform scales to kind of ingest the data from all of these vehicles, enable their rules in real time. So each of these OEMs and system integrators essentially want to do a lot of machine learning based inferencing, right? Because they would have certain AI ML models that they would like to kind of run on these real time data streams from the vehicles and get the outputs of that, and then do specific solutioning on top of that. So essentially, yeah, that's how the entire ecosystem works. Like we control the entire life cycle of the data. We don't get into the kind of solutioning that this data could derive. That is what our system integrators and our OEMs are best at. But we kind of enable them with the technology to collect the data securely onto their own cloud environment and enable them to play around with that data so that they could enable a lot of solutions in the market. So that's how we kind of work with our partners in a nutshell.
Understood. So, we'll kind of talk about playing around with the data a bit. Just a very quick extended question I have is, this is not what you started with, right? Not what you started. I think you started with fleet management. How did
Yeah.
that change, that transition happen? What was that idea that got you guys into it? And it's proving itself fairly successful. But what
Yeah.
what made that transition happen in the first place?
Yeah, when we started, it was just a fleet management solution that we are offering. So our customers were literally fleet owners who had, say, 5 vehicles, 10 vehicles, and we would kind of sell this solution to them. Uh, but what we realized is, and pretty early on, I think it was 2 years into starting or so, that we kind of realized that fleet owners are varied, right? So there's endless use cases out there um, that kind of needs to be fulfilled. So we saw a lot of segmentation happening in the industry, and a generic fleet management solution wouldn't really cut it for, let us say, a school bus transporter, right? Or somebody who's into ambulance management. If you just give them a generic fleet management solution and tell them, hey, this is where your vehicle is, it probably wouldn't solve their problem 100% of the time. It would probably address 50-60% of their concerns, but it wouldn't really solve 100% of their problem. So we kind of wanted to enable technology to achieve these separate use cases, and that's where we kind of took a step back, and we thought, let's not go directly to fleet owners with a fixed solution. And we were also not able to kind of cope up with the requirements, to be honest with you, because the kind of use cases we were seeing, we couldn't really develop everything in house, right? So the idea was, well, let's not do it this way. Let's be more of a tech enabler, and let us find system integrators, or let us find, because at that, it was a time when manufacturers were also getting into the space and trying to solve the customers problems. So commercial vehicle manufacturers were kind of entering with 100% connected vehicles, and they had their fleet owners as customers already, and they were trying to solve for their problems, right? So we thought, instead of competing with system integrators, and it's a big space, to be honest, in India, and manufacturers also who are kind of offering fleet management solutions, let us be more of a platform company which gives them modules to kind of enable these use cases, right? So we say we work with a commercial vehicle manufacturer and enable them to to do a lot of use cases or segmented solutions for their customers. So when we work with every OEM, it's different, because some OEMs are doing light commercial vehicles. So the use cases that light commercial vehicles work for us is very different. Some manufacturers do school buses, right? And they want to cater to a different audience. Some trucks are specifically designed to go into mining, right? So that is a very different industry and requires a different solution. So with that idea, we kind of partnered with multiple OEMs. We kind of enable them with technology and enable them to go to market with specific customer facing solutions. So yeah, I think two things that kind of drove that decision. One is, of course, the vast number of use cases, and secondly, also, since OEMs and manufacturers were also kind of getting into the space, we thought partnership is a better way to move forward, right? And also, another thing was, we wanted to take this global. Just being a fleet management solution would mean that you have to kind of do the groundwork of having people on the field serving requirements from fleet owners and so on. So we thought, if we take a platform approach, we could have partners all over the world, and yeah, make this available across multiple regions.
Fairly,
So yeah, that was the journey. Yeah.
yeah, and I think it has paying off very well. So, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Uh, okay. Coming back to playing with data. So there's other aspect of this automotive data that you've mentioned a lot of times, that you've talked about a lot of times, and the opportunities that come with it, not for just two stakeholders, but for a lot, fairly large players in the ecosystem as well,
Yeah.
in fintech space as well, right? For a
Yeah.
company, financial services, insurance, all of that as well. So, talk to us about these opportunities very briefly, and what is again your role to play in them.
Yeah, perfect. I think that is a very exciting part of the future for us, and that is what we are working towards and hoping to kind of enable the entire ecosystem. So, basically, when we talk about, say, insurance or finance or so on, when you look at the life cycle of a vehicle, right, it starts with the vehicle itself. Uh, then you have the dealer who comes in, and dealer offers a lot of servicing support. There's an insurance provider who would typically be linked to the vehicle, offering insurance. Sometimes there's a financier in between who's kind of financing the vehicle. You have fuel providers as another big segment, which is kind of adding into the cost of the vehicle. So we kind of looked at the vehicle and the total cost of ownership for a vehicle in general, and who are the players that would kind of contribute to this cost, right? And we thought, this data of the vehicle would actually add benefit to each of these stakeholders, right? If you look at it, there's insurance, there's financier, there's fuel provider, there's a lot of roadside assistance providers, there are local garages that you go to, or some kind of aftermarket service provider kind of an ecosystem. So there's a lot of key players in here. And today, the ecosystem is such that the data is only available for the customer to see on their phones and probably to the manufacturer, right? So if we just work with manufacturers, we're just enabling them with technology, and we're just probably giving visibility to the actual owner of the vehicle. But what about these other people in the kind of in the ecosystem, right? So that's what got us thinking, and we kind of thought this idea of a marketplace for data, which the OEM is already connected, right? The OEM has the data that they need. What if there's a secure layer to be able to share this data, of course with the consent of the customer, and only the necessary data points, not everything that kind of comes out of the way. What if we were able to share this with, say, the insurance provider, right? What use cases could it drive? And we've already seen these use cases, and also India is kind of warming up to the idea of pay as you drive or pay how you drive. Basically, adjust your premiums basis insurance premiums basis how well you drive, or the number of kilometers that you kind of drive. So if this data is shared with insurance companies, they could essentially offer pay as you drive and pay how you drive insurance. Same thing with the financier, right? So once you're financing the vehicle, basically, you need visibility into where the vehicle is. Sometimes the finance contracts run into saying, the vehicle can't go beyond a certain region. They have to be within, depending on the kind of vehicle that we're talking about, the contracts are very dynamic. So this data could actually help them validate these contracts and see if the vehicle is kind of running in the right zone. Is it being driven in a certain way, and so on. So that was another angle to it. And of course, the aftermarket kind of service providers, they could benefit from this data and kind of getting a health card of the overall vehicle before they actually go ahead and service the vehicle in real time. And then there's also resellers of the vehicles, right? So they are also a part of this ecosystem. So they could also benefit from a health card of the vehicle and see how it's being driven. Has it gone through sufficient run? What kind of behavior was exhibited while driving this vehicle, and that would help them price the vehicle also. So multiple players that could benefit off of this data. So yeah, so we are kind of working towards a marketplace which collects this data from the OEM, and you can do this in parallel. Of course, the insurance company can go ahead and provide another device that would fit into the vehicle and solve for their use case. But that is a lot of redundancy because there's already a very good telematics hardware fitted onto the vehicle by the manufacturer, right? So you might as well use the same hardware to enable the use case for a insurance provider. So that is how we thought about all of this, and we kind of thought of a data marketplace which could enable gathering all of this data with the consent of the customer built into it, and enable all of these players with the relevant data points to provide the use cases that they could benefit from, and enable better use cases to the customer. So that is the whole idea behind having a data marketplace.
Fairly understood. But all these use cases of data that OEM already probably had before, since they were already in the space, why was it not explored before? Is there a particular reason to it?
Yeah, so well, the reasoning is connected vehicles within OEMs is fairly new, to be honest, right? I mean, you still have very few OEMs who are 100% connected, right? So not all the vehicles are typically connected. You'll probably have the high-end variants connected, not the lower-end vehicles, and so on. So that is a transition that the industry is kind of going through, where and government initiatives are massively helping on that front as well, right? Especially in commercial vehicles, we have government initiatives which mandates fitment of telematics devices and so on. So now telematics is being seen. There's compliance that you need to meet, and also there's a lot of value that the OEM needs to add. So once you have a significant amount of vehicles covered, it then makes sense to open up these use cases for the broader aftermarket players in the life cycle of the vehicle. So I think it's still initial days, at least in India, but a lot of good traction, a lot of connectivity of vehicles happening, and I'm sure these use cases would open up in the future as well. Because OEMs still do share the data today with specific providers. So if it's a fairly big customer, they would probably kind of pipe the data to them, but there's no process around it, right? So you kind of need to get the consent of the customer in. You kind of need to onboard the other providers, and that is definitely the job for probably an aggregator who has access to multiple OEMs data. So yeah, so that is where we are at currently with that.
Okay. And with coming back to the security aspect of it, very quickly touching upon that point, with connected cars, so much
Yeah,
of data, there's a potential risk of security, right? That's very
yeah.
given somehow. For the viewers, can you break down some two, three potential threats? And how Zeliot works to overcome those challenges as well.
Sure. So one major thing that we are seeing, so as I told you, the edge product that we have that would sit on the vehicle or the telematics hardware essentially, we are kind of encrypting the data from the source, right? So whenever the edge gathers the data, it is happening locally, then it encrypts the data and then pushes it to condense onto the server. So this is one channel which was like a weak link of sorts, because you could have man in the middle kind of attacks. And we've seen this happen, right? There were a lot of these aftermarket hardware, telematics hardware, they typically had open kind of data protocol. So it's essentially a high risk security risk, uh, which we kind of try to address by, bringing in encryption. Uh, we also have compatibility with hardware security modules. So there are specific modules onto the hardware where your private key is kind of stored. Nobody has access to that. You could only read from it. You can't even update it, right? So you could have the data completely end to end encrypted right from the vehicle onto the cloud. And even on the cloud, all of our user information, user related personal identifiable information is essentially masked, and we don't really save that data. As you said, we are a platform, we are a pass through. We don't save any, transactional data at all. And another advantage of the way we do our go to market, we offer the cloud on the customer's cloud subscription. Our platform sits on the customer's cloud subscription directly. So there's a channel from the vehicle directly to the customer's cloud subscription. It doesn't go through us, which could add latency and potential data threats. It is always, end-to-end encrypted with the customer's cloud subscription and the device directly, right? So that also helps with localization and ensuring that there is no third-party sharing of the data, and we don't have any access to the transactional data really. It's all localized and all encrypted onto the customer's cloud. So taking this approach has also massively kind of helped us work with OEMs and manufacturers, because uh, a data leak is the last thing you want, right? As a manufacturer, and the kind of probably the damage it would cause to the reputation. So this has been a good edge that we have in terms of how we offer the product, and yeah, that helps. So this is how we kind of take care of security from an end-to-end perspective.
Okay, again, moving forward, actually, a year back, the collaboration with Bosch that happened was definitely a milestone. And even though it's been a year, it was a milestone.
Yeah,
And, the transition that happened from customer to investor, they were your customers first, right? If I'm not wrong,
Yeah,
again. Right. So
they
we're
still
not,
are. So yeah,
oh, really? Oh, that's nice.
yeah,
Uh, Awesome. So, not going to talk about the transition, how that happened, because I know you've talked about that a lot already out there, but just want to
yeah.
understand what is the current situation? What does the, future hold for both of you? What does the collaboration look like now?
Yeah. So, well, Bosch in this space is, well, there's no other Bosch in this space really, right? So when
Bosch is probably the best partner to have in when we are enabling mobility related use cases. So the currently Bosch is coming out with a lot of digital solutions in the aftermarket overall. They've even publicly announced some of the initiatives that they are starting, right? So when you talk about connected vehicle becomes a centerpiece for them to be to enable these kind of use cases that they talk about in the mobility space. So they have their own fleet management solutions that they've come out with. They've come up with something called as LOS, L.OS, which is logistics.os, which enables multiple partners across the logistics to get visibility using various tools and so on. So our technology is a fit there. Kind of we work together in enabling that platform for Bosch. Of course, we are also listed as one of the partners on their ecosystem, on their marketplaces, and so on. So our products are listed there, and we consume a lot of services from Bosch as well. So they have cloud products, digital services in this domain that we consume. It's a really good partnership. It's a really good synergy, which has been going strong for about 2.5, 3 years now. And we see it continue to only grow in the future because we are also expanding into Europe, in America, and so on. And we have partners there, and Bosch's presence will definitely kind of fuel our growth into these regions. So yeah, definite, very, very strong strategic synergy with Bosch overall.
Correct. And like, what is the future of connected mobility that you see in India? And again, is there anything specific that Zeliot is also eyeing for currently?
Yeah, well, we want to be kind of the de facto platform for everything connected. So today, when you talk about connected, it is just, as I told you, it's probably one telematics hardware which is sending you data like every 5 seconds or every 10 seconds or so. That landscape is quickly changing, right? You have video cameras getting fitted into vehicles. You have visibility going beyond just location. You have visibility extending to, video feed. There are some things you could do with audio. There's a lot of ADAS and a lot of pedestrian detection technology. You have technologies that are kind of coming into increasing the safety overall, and also ultimately moving towards autonomous, right? So all of these, there are just additional sensors and additional data points that are going to be get added onto the vehicle, and we kind of want to kind of master that, champion that cause, enable technology which scales across all of these data points as and when they get added, and enable creation of multiple use cases and value adds in the system overall, right? So and also I think there's interesting to note that some government related mandates, be it AS 140, we could have probably GPS based tolling in the future, so you could not have fastags and actually toll and collect toll based on how much the vehicle runs. Those are really, really powerful use cases that we kind of want to be there for, and we want to enable overall. So that's what we are eyeing. And India specifically is very new to this, and it's kind of getting up there. So it's really great to be a part of this journey and kind of enable these use cases overall.
Yeah, sounds very exciting for sure. I mean,
Yeah,
so many revenue opportunities anybody could pick up if they wanted to create a business also out of this.
yeah,
Connected
truly, yeah,
mobility is for sure. So yeah,
yeah,
you're definitely in a very good space. And
yeah,
you're definitely taking advantage of it in a good way, of course. But that was a great
yeah.
conversation. Thank you so much, Sudeep, for all those insight. Very lovely conversation. All the best for your company as well, for all the success. We'll be looking forward to it.